Hello, hello, my friends. Michael Anthony, Exceptional Life Podcast. Yeah, baby. Exciting day today. Why? Well, because it's another awesome day. I have some family coming over. We're going to have a little get together, drink some wine, have some food. It's going to be an awesome time. So my mother's coming over, my sister and her boyfriend, and just looking forward to that. So I'm excited. I wanted to put this video together. It's really about self-education. And one thing that I like to say that I actually stole from somebody else, and I can't remember who said it, but they said if higher education taught self-education, if you learned self-education even in high school and grade school, then higher education wouldn't be around, right? And I've always been a huge proponent of self-education. I had a hard time reading for many years because I just had such a hard time focusing. It would take me forever to get through a book, and I always enjoyed books and reading, but I would maybe average a couple books a year for many years. And the reason being is because I just had a hard time focusing. I wasn't very mindful. I was kind of compulsive in many different ways. If I read a page, I'd have to go back and reread it because halfway through the page, I would be daydreaming and thinking of something else, and I wouldn't even comprehend what I was reading, and I'd have to go back. And this would just go on and on for, page after page. So the cool thing is when I started on this self-improvement journey several years ago, and I started to become more mindful, and I started to change my brain physically and mentally, then I became ultra focused, and I can browse through a book no problem. And now I average about 2 books per month, and it's been life-changing. It's been transformative because there's so much great knowledge out there, and absorbing all that information has helped me implement practices and modalities to live a better life in body, mind, and spirit. And so that is the underlying theme of my podcast. If you look at my videos, you'll see some reoccurring themes and topics. And in order to live an exceptional life, in my opinion, you need to focus on these different pillars of life, these different pillars of health and well-being. And so when I say body, mind, and spirit, you're going to see some different books that kind of approach each topic in different ways. So when I say body, I'm thinking, health, nutrition, your physical well-being, exercise, activity, right? Things like that. As far as mind, I'm talking like brain science, neuroscience, different programming techniques, subconscious reprogramming, mindfulness, meditation. There's all sorts of modalities and that underlie that whole mindset, mindfulness theme, that pillar of living a great life. Because if you can't control your thoughts, then there's no way to change your behaviors, to change your habits. And if you have reoccurring negative habits, disempowering thoughts, then it doesn't matter how healthy you are physically, because you can still manifest disease just by releasing stress hormones and stressing your body through the way you're thinking, the way you're triggering, the way you're reacting, the way you're living, right? Your perspective on things are going to have a tremendous impact on your physical body, because just by thought alone, you can release hormones, chemicals that, when done habitually over time, can really degrade your health, your immune system. And that's important, right? So mindset and the mind are so incredibly important. And I think it's an overlooked topic out there. So many people focus on diet, nutrition, and fitness, and those are incredibly important. But a lot of people do not focus on stress management, mindfulness, emotional self-regulation. A lot of people don't even know what any of that means. And here's the thing. You may have this really fit, athletic body that you worked on for many years, and you might have your nutrition dialed in, and it's awesome, and that is phenomenal if you do. But if your mindset isn't in the right place, if you have a very disempowering attitude, if you are constantly fearful, if you're constantly worrying, then you are wreaking havoc on your body, right? It's okay in small doses, but you really should be in more empowered and confident and happy and joyful most of the time. If you're not, then that could be an issue. Now, these things all are interconnected, right? So a lot of times people develop a better mindset as a result of becoming healthier from a physical perspective. Some people, like me, have done it the opposite, where my health started to improve as I improved my mind. I became more mindful, more self-aware, more focused. Then the nutrition, the diet became more dialed in because I had such a hard time focusing on that. And so I approached it from a different angle. But regardless of what angle you approach it from, it's important to implement techniques and strategies that include mindfulness and mindset. So we're going to talk about books like that. Now, the third part of the underlying theme of this podcast is spirit, right? Body, mind, and spirit. So spirit's for me, is going to be your beliefs about yourself, about the world, about the people around you, about the universe, your relationships. Things that include ideas and theories about the universe, about how everything kind of works together with this universal source energy, this source of energy that flows through all of us and nature and everything around us, right? So I love exploring kind of the mystical and the mysterious as it relates to that. And it has made me a more intelligent, grounded person as a result. And I've had some really cool mystical experiences as a result of some of my meditation and breath work and things like that. So I think focusing on different things like that and keeping an open mind is exciting and fun too. So take a little sipperoo, some Pellegrino. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go through several books that are just my favorite books, ones that have been transformative for me, ones that I've read, reread, took notes on, implemented different ideas and techniques from, and perhaps they could be transformative for you as well. All right, let's get started. My first book that I'm going to tell you about, currently my favorite book, I absolutely love this book, is Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. This book is phenomenal. This book blew my mind. This book absolutely blew my mind. The best way to explain what this book is all about is that Dr. Joe and his research that he's done and his own personal experiences that he has had, he has started to close the gap between science and spirituality. This book is really a guide to learn how to embrace the power of your mind, the amazing power of your brain. And it's eye-opening because you're going to learn so many things about your mind, your brain, just kind of all the space around you and the energy that is around you that exists that you cannot see with the naked eye, and how it's all interrelated. And not only that, but how to get past yourself, the limiting beliefs, the fears, the conditioning that keeps you being who you are. And if you want to make changes, you need to get past your present day self in order to become that future self that you dream of being. And a lot of people just stay stuck in who they are for their entire life. And so he talks about the subconscious mind, the conscious mind, the heart-brain connection. This is all interrelated and how it affects the body, how it releases different hormones in the body, and really a manual to show you how to change your life so you can live a more extraordinary life. It's truly powerful. It's a big book. It's packed with all the science and the research that he's done. It talks about the techniques. If you want to learn about your brain and your mind and how powerful you truly are, and techniques to implement into your daily life to realize that power that you have, then this is a must read. I've read it a couple times. I've got it all marked up, highlighted. I've written on the pages. I got pages dog-eared. I mean, every time I read it, I learn something new. I mean, it's truly an amazing book. And if you've never watched any videos of Dr. Joe Dispenza, you got to go check him out. Dr. Joe is truly a frontier on the cutting edge of brain science, mind-body connection, and really closing that gap between science and spirituality, where mystical can be explained, right? Where the unknown can be explained. This is a powerful book. I recommend this to a lot of people. Now, the key is you got to read it, reread it, take notes, highlight it, because you only retain a certain amount of information when you read. So I always find myself going back, rereading. I take lots of notes. I highlight the pages. And the key is to take action on stuff you're learning. I'm going to pause before I move on to the next book. I want to show you something that's important. Just reading these books and putting them on your bookshelf is not going to help you that much. You're only going to retain a small amount of information. And if you're not actually implementing and taking action, then you're not going to have any change. And a lot of people get stuck in that cycle. They love to read. They read lots of books. When they read the information in here, they get excited. Their brain lights up, right? You release those endorphins, that dopamine. You feel good because you're reading some insightful information, and you're only going to retain a small amount of it. A couple weeks later, you've pretty much forgotten all about the book, and you've moved on, still living the same life. You're still the same person, still the same habits, still the same behaviors, and you're looking for that miracle that's just going to turn your life around. You need to take action. You need to implement daily techniques. And it's not hard to do. You can make small changes and implement daily routines that take less than an hour to accomplish every day, and you will see significant changes in your life. So just reading this and getting excited about it and then putting it on the bookshelf and going to the next book, it's not going to help you that much. So you really need to come up with a method, which I'll talk more about what I do exactly, on trying to retain as much information from this as possible. Okay, so let me move on to the next book here. The next one, The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton, PhD. Oh, Dr. Bruce Lipton, he is awesome. This guy, incredibly intelligent, very knowledgeable. He's a cellular biologist. He's got an awesome backstory, so I highly suggest you checking him out. But this book is going to align nicely with Becoming Supernatural. And Dr. Bruce Lipton, he's essentially the father of epigenetics. And epigenetics is a new science that you should look into because it's truly remarkable. He talks about how your thought affects the cells in your body. And all of the cells in your bodies have these little antennas on them, and they're constantly looking for information. And you got trillions of cells that make up your entire body. Your entire body is essentially a colony of individual little cells, right? And so the way you think and the way you feel affects the chemistry of your body. And that's why I was saying you can't live in this disempowered, stressful, fearful state all the time. It does have a top-down effect where it's going to affect your entire body. It's really the science of how thoughts control your life. He talks about subconscious reprogramming. He talks about the subconscious and conscious mind, so you have a clear understanding of what that means and why it's important. So you got to definitely check this out. These two books alone have been very transformative for me. I think if you're going to add a couple new books to your library, pick these two up for sure. Research these guys. They got tons of videos on YouTube. Listen to them. Tremendous amounts of insight. I'm going to refer to two more books that are part of my favorite group of books here. And I'm not going to spend too much time talking about them, but they're very good supplemental books, I think, from a mindset perspective. So The Biology of Belief, Becoming Supernatural, they are about health and well-being, but it's from the perspective of the mind, brain science, neuroscience, neurobiology, physiology, things like that. These two books are also very powerful, and I do recommend them to people. So the first one is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. This book was actually updated and expanded. It includes lots of great techniques, things like visualization, meditation, things to improve your self-image, to change the way you think in order to change the way you feel. Again, a lot of science in here. This is a great book. I would check that out. And then Think and Grow Rich. This is a classic. Napoleon Hill. This book can be a little tough to read just because it was written so long ago. And the other problem is the original manuscript was much longer. They actually took a lot out. So there's a lot of reading between the lines, I believe, when you read this, but a lot of great perspective. If you want to improve your life, not just becoming rich, right? Think and Grow Rich. That's just not from a financial perspective. That's rich in, health and well-being and relationships, your career, and yes, of course, financially as well. Just a great overall book for anybody who's looking to improve their life, personal development, and live a more exceptional life. All right, moving on. So the next two books I'm going to talk about are two of my favorites from a health, nutrition perspective, the physical body. And the first one's going to be Lies My Doctor Told Me by Dr. Ken Berry. Dr. Ken Berry, one of my favorite doctors. I've been following him for a long time. Dr. Berry greatly improved his health and transformed his life, and then started to do the same with his patients, and he's had tremendous success. I belong to his Patreon site. I got insider access because I just love him. He's amazing. He's doing a lot of great things. He has really great knowledge, and he's very intelligent, but he's just like a good old boy from Tennessee, and he explains things very clearly. He communicates extremely well, and so I just really enjoy watching his videos, being a part of his group, and this book is definitely a must-have. It's very easy to read. It's not that long. It's called Lies My Doctor Told Me, and he breaks down a lot of the myths that just seem to be common knowledge for people as it relates to nutrition and health. Things like cholesterol's bad for your health and it clogs your arteries. He breaks that myth down. Saturated fat, the same thing. Or that eating meat is harmful to your body, which is preposterous. He breaks that all down. Or that you shouldn't spend time in the sun and that you should lather yourself in toxic sunscreens, right? He breaks all of these myths down, what he calls little white lies. And there's a bunch. So you definitely got to check this book out. This is really easy to read. The other cool thing is he includes the research or the lack thereof. There's a lot of common little white lies that people have believed their entire lives, and there's no solid science or research behind it, or it might be backed by just shoddy research that wasn't conducted in the way it should have been. So this is a must read, I think, for anyone looking to improve their health, their nutrition. If you don't understand nutrition yet, you're trying to improve your health, and you need to get this for sure. So that's a good one. Okay, the next one, Why We Get Sick by Dr. Benjamin Bickman. Another great read. Another great read and a great supplement to The Lies My Doctor Told Me. Dr. Bickman, he is like the father of insulin resistance research. He's a PhD. He's been studying insulin resistance and how it is related to disease, how it degrades the body, chronic disease. And this is just a must read from understanding how impactful insulin resistance is today in society, why it's an epidemic, and how it seems to be an underlying contributor to chronic disease. And so he talks a lot about different conditions, different diseases, and how insulin resistance seems to be an underlying condition for most, if not all, of these different diseases. I recommend this to anyone because people think of all these different diseases. They all have different names, right? We have different labels and categories that scientists and doctors came up with a long time ago. You have diabetes, you have cancer, right? You have high blood pressure, you have gout, right? There's all these different labels, but the underlying theme is that there's some sort of inflammation in the body that's the underlying root cause for a majority of these diseases. And another underlying condition you see is insulin resistance. So a lot of all these different conditions can be tied back to insulin resistance. So I highly recommend reading this. It's not a long read, but it would give you a good understanding what disease is, what chronic disease is, and why insulin resistance is so important to understand and why people become insulin resistant. So highly recommend that. That was a great read. That just came out year, so it's a fairly new book. Okay, my next one, you're probably not going to be surprised about this because I've been talking about this lately and had a guest on recently where we talked about this, and this is Sacred Cow, The Case for Better Meat. So this book is phenomenal, and this just came out. There's a documentary that I highly recommend you all check out. You can find the documentary called Sacred Cow on iTunes, Amazon. You can find it out there. Now, I had the producer of the documentary on, James Conley. He was awesome. We had a great conversation. But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of misinformation out there about agriculture, about beef production, sustainability, greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, things like that are disturbing. And so, first of all, a lot of people believe that meat is bad for your health, that it causes cancer, that it clogs your arteries, right? Especially red meat. People who do eat meat sometimes will focus on chicken or fish, thinking that that's better choices. So the best way to explain what this is, other than the little summary I just gave you, is that if you think meat is bad for you, if you think it's unethical, if you think beef production, that cows are farting methane and it's contributing to greenhouse gas emissions, climate change, that we should have less meat or we should eat less meat. If you believe any of that, then you need to check out the documentary. First of all, you need to read the book. If you think a plant-based diet is healthier than a meat-based diet, then you definitely need to read this book. I think a couple things you'll learn is that, first of all, meat is a phenomenal nutrient-dense form of nutrition, high in protein, high in good fats, in all of the nutrition your body needs, all of the vitamins and minerals that you need. It's the most nutrient-dense form of food out there, including the organ meats, which are like superfoods because they have all of those nutrients and minerals you need. So not only that, we're designed to eat meat, right? The other problem is plants could be very harmful to your body. A lot of food allergies are from plants. Plants have their own toxins and ways to fight off predation. They don't want to be eaten either. They go into all of that. They talk about sentience. They talk about ethics. They talk about farming, beef production, greenhouse gas emissions, all of the science. This is heavily backed in science. This book goes into all of that. You need to check this book out. It's such a great all-around book. Body, mind, and spirit, right? It touches on all of those topics and it makes complete sense and you'll feel so much better for reading it. You're going to want to share it too. So I highly recommend reading this, gifting it, and talking about it, getting the word out there. You're going to feel better. You're going to look better. You're going to be healthier. You're going to have a clear mind. You're going to feel great. You're going to want other people to do the same. That's why I got this podcast together. Okay, so that was quite a few books that I presented to you. They're just some of my favorites as of right now. I got a whole bookshelf behind the camera here with plenty of other phenomenal books. But I don't want to spend too much more time, showing you all these different books. There's plenty of them, especially in the nutrition space. There's a lot of great books out there. Like Robb has some great books out there. Dr. Jason Fung, he has some phenomenal books out there. In fact, if you're not familiar with fasting or you are looking to improve your nutrition, you're going to pick up Little White Lies, My Doctor Told Me by Dr. Ken Berry, and Why We Get Sick by Dr. Bickman. Another one you might want to add is the Guide to Intermittent Fasting. Dr. Jason Fung, he's like the father of fasting. Fasting is such a powerful therapeutic technique. It's a powerful human performance technique. It's just good for you all around, and you can learn some very powerful ways of taking care of yourself using fasting, which I do on a daily basis. So maybe add that one. I don't have that book with me here right now. It's actually up in my kitchen. But I am going to present two more books to you because I want it to be a little bit well-rounded. So there's some different topics that kind of hit all of those different pillars of health and well-being. One other one I'm going to recommend, and this one is a unique one. This one's called Chillpreneur, right? And this is by Denise Duffield-Thomas. Now, the funny thing about this book is she wrote this intending it for women, really. And it's wrote from that perspective. But I'll tell you what, I found her I saw her on a podcast, and I really liked her personality, her attitude, and some of the things she was talking about really resonated with me. So I picked up her book. Even though it's written for women, it doesn't even matter. I'll tell you what, this is a great book for mindset, developing an abundance mindset. And if you have some passion projects or goals as it relates to your career, a business you want to start, this is a phenomenal book to have, to read before you take on that project or that business. Maybe you want to write a book or something like that. She goes into mindset as well as business strategies. And so I just love the way this book's written, and the concepts in here are phenomenal. So definitely check out Chillpreneur. All right, I'm going to refer to one more, and then that's going to be it for now. Like I said, there's plenty of other books I can go into, but one more I'm going to recommend is What You Think of Me Is None of My Business by Cole-Whitaker. And this is an older book, but an awesome book. So many great key concepts in here, a lot of good techniques in here. Again, this is more of a mindset, mind training type of book. But I think it's very powerful, so I wanted to throw that in there. And so that is it. That is some of my favorites from my library that I've actually read all of these in the last couple years. I've reread most of them, which leads me into my next point that I wanted to make before I let you go. And that is, don't just read these books and put them on the shelf. You're going to get excited about the stuff you're reading. You're going to put this on the shelf, and then you're not going to take any action. You're not going to implement anything. And then it really hasn't served you in any way, right? So look at it this way. So let's say this piece of paper represents everything you remember about a book that you just read, right? Let's say you just read this book. You're excited about it. Everything makes sense. It resonates with you. Maybe there's some techniques you want to implement. You're going to make some changes to live a more exceptional life. So this represents all of that knowledge that you remember. Now remember, you're going to only retain a very small portion of what you read, but this represents what you've retained. So you put the book on the shelf, you're excited. Maybe you're going to try to implement some things. Maybe you even wrote some things down. But you don't take any action, right? You don't really put a focused strategy together or outline anything to start taking action immediately. And so a few days go by. Let's say 3-4 days go by. This now represents what you've retained from what you originally retained, which was still only a small percentage of the information that was available. So now you're at about 50% of what you retained. Right? You still remember some things that maybe really struck a nerve, that really resonated with you. You're still excited about it, and yeah, you're gonna take some action here soon, right? But you're a little busy. You got to work, you got to take care of the kids, whatever. You got to walk the dog, so you're just a little busy. You haven't taken any action at this point. Now, a week goes by, right? Now you're a week and a half out from when you read that book. So the book's been on the shelf, maybe you still remember a few things, but you've lost a lot of that information that you remembered and that you were even excited about. And you're now at about 25% of the original information that you retained, that you were excited about, that made sense. But again, even that information that you retained after the initial reading was still a small percentage, right? And so the point is, once you get out a few weeks, you're going to pretty much have forgotten about a lot of what you read. It's going to be different for different people, right? But what I want you to do is, when you read, be taking notes, right? If you find something that really resonates with you, write it down. So that's what I do. When I am reading, I'm constantly marking the books up with pens and highlighters. I'm dog-earing pages, and I also use notebooks to take notes. And a lot of times I'll go back and reread all of my notes. I reread the different information that I wrote down or that I highlighted, and I try to refresh my memory. And then I'm taking key concepts, things that I'm excited about, different techniques, different pieces of information that really resonated with me, and I make sure to implement them in some way. If it's a technique, maybe a meditation or something, then I start to implement it and try it out. And I try it for, a few weeks at a minimum to see how I feel and how I respond to it. So you got to get past that habit of procrastinating, and you also got to get past the habit of just reading it, getting excited about it, putting it on the shelf and forgetting all about it. I mean, if you want to really instill some significant change in your body, your health, your nutrition, your mindset, then you need to start to implement these. Now, if you're reading a lot of books, then there's going to be lots of information. You might not know where to start. So just start with one at a time. Maybe go back, reread some of these books, these concepts. Just start to follow your instincts, what makes sense intuitively, and just start to live the life of your dreams, right? Things are going to resonate with you, and your path might be a little different than mine, and mine might be a little different than, Jim Bob over there. So just start to try things, implement them. Taking action is so important. You don't really make any progress just by reading and putting it on the bookshelf and getting excited about it and talking about it. That's all good and fine and dandy, but you want to take action. Action is the key. Be bold, take action, move forward, make progress, and don't forget to be exceptional, baby. All right, see you.